welcome back to week 12 of the Hearthstone Global Games, where Dan has disappeared for a second. I'm joined again by...
A second?
Yeah, he's
coming back, is he?
You can go now. He's
cool.
going to cast
Awesome.
this one. You're just keeping his seat warm, right?
Yeah.
I'm joined again
up without it.
by my good friend Lorinda. It is warm, isn't it?
It's good, yeah.
But we're going to be casting Peru versus Ukraine now. And are you looking forward to this game?
I really am, yeah. One of the best teams in the whole event, if not the best team, taking on the team that is probably the biggest surprise to still be in at this stage. Peru, they had to do it the hard way. They had to beat the UK and the USA.
Both of them
3-0. Let's have a look how they started this time around.
Yeah, let's take a look at the group. We mentioned briefly earlier, though, something that Like a Boss said to me was that Peru were able to study the UK, study the USA, counter them perfectly, and work towards that 6-0. Now they're here, they're 0-1, unfortunately, after losing to Greece. Now they're going to really want this win against Ukraine, though Ukraine, not the easiest team to get a win against.
Yeah, it's like to want to win against Ukraine, but only the Czech Republic have actually managed the win against Ukraine so far, and probably the hardest team in the whole event to beat. That roster is completely ridiculous.
Yeah, as you can see there, Nyria, Dr. Hippie, Kalento, Nick, Chipper. These guys have HCT written all over them, especially right now with Nyria and Kalento, both of which are going to be representing at HCT in Shanghai.
Yep.
Nyria was also at the Bahamas. So as we said last week, I think me and Rob, basically using Hearthstone just to go on holiday at the moment.
Yeah, don't blame him. And Nyria also commented that on Twitter today that he didn't stream this week because he's taking this very, very seriously, this particular match, I believe.
Great. Gotta just show their dominance and beat Peru and their llamas that we see on screen every week.
The llamas.
Don't see llamas anywhere else in the world.
Do we not?
I don't, personally.
Okay.
Only on this screen.
There's Ukraine with the unusual and incredible looking architecture, I must admit. Been to Ukraine and it is a beautiful looking place. I've used that B word again, but honestly, just look at this.
It's a good B word to use.
It's better than most of the other ones, yeah.
Now we are going to have a listen and see what Nandib had to say about his team and the Hearthstone Global Games.
Hi, I'm Nandib. I play from Team Peru. Viva Peru. It feels really amazing to qualify to phase 2. We thought we couldn't make it, then we thought that we could make it, then all the pressure came into the last game, and it was just amazing. The mood in the USA game, it was kind of strange because we also thought we couldn't make it because people were saying it was impossible because of the scores. So we just played for fun.
This is going to be a 3-0 for Peru. USA's dreams of going 5-0 out the window. Peru goes 3-0 and says, hey, we're on the board now.
After the USA game, everything just went crazy. About the UK game, I just was like, guys, don't care about that. Just play the best we can. We can actually make a 3-0. Let's just bring like solid decks. Let's research about. Let's start watching streams. And then after we beat them, it just went all crazy. And people were like messaging us like, congrats on your like miracle run, pretty much.
Peru have beaten the USA, they've beaten the UK 3-0 in back-to-back weeks.
I think I've been playing Hearthstone since the beta. I tried to play a lot of national tournaments and I tried to make the community better and grow. Easy, he's one of the newcomers in Peru. I think he's really good. He started playing like 6 months ago, around that. And he started like, going to competitive plays, and I think he's the best upcoming player from Peru. And then we have Uchiha Sasuke. He has been in a lot of prelims since he started. I think he's been like 3 or 4 prelims. Chishtar, he's a streamer, and he knows how we feel in each match, and he like calms us down a lot when we get nervous. For our community to grow, I think it's really important what we're doing right now in HGG, because this will bring new players to the table and be like, they're doing really great. They're getting prize money. They represent our country. Maybe we can also do that. And they start playing Hearthstone. They start like getting to competitive play. And that's how the community grows.
Really nice to get an insight
Right.
from Nandib there. Peru, one of the definitely lesser known teams, I think, in stage 2 of the Hearthstone Global Games. And quite a story as well. They didn't think they were able to qualify. They didn't think it was possible. They played the USA for fun. It doesn't sound like they put that much preparation into that. And then when they realized, oh, we won 3-0, we can get through this, then as he said, they started watching the streams. They started really studying the players in the United Kingdom, determined to kick Romania out of the tournament, and they did it.
Yeah, I've been guilty of pushing APAC really hard in this event because APAC gets a raw deal a lot of the time. But South America gets lumped in with the Americas and largely ignored to a lot of the extent. Brazil are definitely putting on the map. PNC with Argentina are putting Argentina on the map. But the whole of South America do have lots of big events with the Copa Americas down there. And when I was in South America last year, it was very clear that a lot of these teams do want to get their respective community, or a lot of these countries want to get their respective communities into this game.
All right, Mr. APAC Dad, let's move on from that again. We haven't talked through the Hearthstone Global Games format yet today. All 9 classes represented, split amongst the 4 players on each team. One of the players has a 3rd class, which they'll be able to choose if they get to the 5th game in the best out of 5. First up is going to be Nandib versus Dr. Hippie. They both have their 2 classes, which were predetermined before. They get shown their opponent's 2 classes, and then they have to choose which of the 2 they want to bring.
Interesting setup for this one. Both of the ace players are first to go, and Ukraine have front-loaded their lineup. They've gone with Warrior, Shaman, and Paladin, which means that the 3 classes you traditionally try and hide, which is Priest, Hunter, and Warlock, they're all going to have to be played.
Right, so which is the ace class there? It's the...
So he's added in the Paladin for the match later.
That's so weird.
And Nandib has got Priest. He's just burying that. I always say buried. I mean, you tune it so it can play against some of the other classes. You use it to fill in holes. But here, the Paladin and the Mage, for instance, chosen. Paladin is just filling in the gaps where if you play against Druid or if you play against Priest.
It's just very strange to see Paladin there as the ace deck. According to my stats from the last 2 weeks, I've only started collecting this since last week, but Paladin has been the most popular class in the Hearthstone Global Games, being picked something like 25 times in the last week.
Right.
24, actually, before today, 24 times.
So they're hoping not to use either Warrior or Shaman. And it's a Shaman they didn't use here, queuing up the Warrior. And it makes it very difficult to predict. Like, you've got the three of the most powerful classes stuck together. Obviously, Dr. Hippie will be able to use 2 of those. Difficult to know exactly what he's going with. Whereas Nandib, he's got Mage, he's got Paladin. He's picked the Mage because it's just really powerful in this particular lineup. Be interesting to see exactly what Hippie's got going here.
Dr. Hippie being just one of these incredible players from Team Ukraine. It's hard to talk about these guys over and over again every week because, well, it's not really hard to talk about them. They've done so much. Dr. Hippie, 2nd place Hearthstone World Championship 2016. Let's just let that sink in for a second. He lost out to Pavel there, but only just lost out to Pavel. And other than that, he was the best player that year.
Keep it or don't keep it, what are you going to do? Fire Plume's Heart, the quest for Warrior.
I throw it. Personally, I throw it. What do you do?
I get it wrong and complain about it every game. I think because this hand is kind of messy against Unknown Mage, you don't really want the Ghoul. The defender's not that great either. I think you have to throw it and look for more stuff, because if Mage goes turn 1 Mana Worm and you don't have the War Axe, or your win conditions, which is run them out of stuff and armor up a lot, they kind of vanish out of the window. But it's an ongoing debate, and Stonehill, he feels that's enough to fend off the Mana Worm. And he just draws the War Axe.
I'm not going to argue with Dr. Hippie. Either he knew the fiery War Axe was coming, he just had faith, or decided that actually that quest is important in terms of winning this game. Nandib actually running the Cabal Courier on the other side.
Don't see that as much as you used to.
It's not common nowadays, is it? Not in the Discover or Burn variants. Whereas they used to be a 2-of originally, I think, in Gunther's first list.
Yeah, Discover Mage started off being called Discover Mage because there are quite a few Discover effects in it.
Is that why?
But now we call it Discover Mage, even though there's largely none, just as a hangover from where it is. So we should probably go back to calling it Gunther at some point.
Now, here's a tough turn, Neil, because it must be tempting to equip the Fiery War Axe. It must also be worth considering armoring up there. He equipped the War Axe. What do you think of that?
It's fine. But something that Strifecrow used to go on about was if they do something on turn 2 with the Axe as well, you know they've got a 3-drop. So you know for sure that, well, I think a Stonehill Defender or That's about it. Tar Creeper in his hand.
Acolyte.
Acolyte. So there's plenty now. It used to exactly be Acolyte in the old.
Yeah.
In the old Control Warrior, the only card it could be was Acolyte, so it was a lot more relevant.
It also means sometimes Peru will hold back their minions like Mana Worms and stuff because they don't want it to just die to the Fiery War Axe. But Dr. Hippie not caring too much, opting to play the tempo game, gets to eat up an Arcanologist with it regardless, and he's looking like he's in a pretty good spot. This curve worked out being very good for him. Peru's curve not looking too bad either. But
Yeah, Peru are going to get a lot of stuff going on this board. Dr. Hippie, probably turn 5 is where he'll just start trying to armor up every single turn, I should think. Unless he has a plan with keeping the quest, maybe he is going to put more store in using the quest to keep the board clear.
So, Stonehill Defender is the obvious play, I think, from Dr. Hippie here. Maybe there's a consideration of slamming the Acolyte and then playing Battle Rage 2.
Very much so, yeah.
He'd be drawing 4 cards for that little deal. And actually, there's no hurry to get these Stonehill Defenders on the board, so...
Yeah, I don't think, even if he completed the quest on, say, turn 7 or turn 8, I don't think he's going to be using it anytime, because you want to get some of that armor established. And sometimes you're so low on health, you need to armor up as well when you do stabilize.
Alternatively, just slamming it and armoring up is probably worth considering too. See which 2 cards you draw from the slam. There are actually a lot of variables that turn to consider, but Dr. Hippie ultimately does go for the Tempo Stonehill Defender, decides that it's unlikely the Acolyte gets dealt with next turn anyway. He's going to get a better Battle Rage later, and Slam will always be valuable at some point.
Valuing the card advantage of the Rathian over the short-term advantage of getting the small time on the board can go along with that. Next
Second
turn...
rate.
Sorry?
Second rate. It's not a
Second
small
rate.
time, he's a big boy.
Sure, yeah. They're all second-rate, small time. They're all failures. It's fine. Just don't probably remember what they're talking about.
Shots fired, and shots fired at the Acolyte of Pain as well, as Medivh's Valet gets rid of it in one fell swoop. Does deny Dr. Hippie that card draw at least. So while he's picked up an extra card from Rathion later, he does lose the card from the Acolyte. Now, Fiery War Axe is going to make short work of that Medivh's Valet, but what else does Dr. Hippie do?
Well, it depends on how much armor he is interested in getting. Obviously, Stonehill Defender and Battle Rage fits the curve nicely. But if he's not in a hurry, he might just want to Battle Rage and armor up. It does mess his curve up a bit going that way. So I imagine we'll just see the Stonehill and the Battle Rage. But I would not be surprised if armoring up starts to happen a lot from about now onwards. As long as he feels he's got some control of the board, I think he'll be okay.
It's a good turn to start, isn't it? The fact that you've got that 3-drop to play, we'll see what you pick up, of course. I doubt there's any 2-mana card that you'd want to get from Stonehill Defender right now. But just armoring up seems, against Mage, like a thing that you want to do a lot. And if you can fit it into the curve easily, then why wouldn't you?
Let's see how he sees this Public Defender. Probably not enough. He'll probably take the Fen Creep. I don't think he's in a hurry to complete. He thinks otherwise. Maybe he is in a hurry to complete. Public Defender will slot in nicely at a later date. And he's going with making the other weapon as well, so not scared of potential Harrison options there.
All right. Cabal Courier looks like a pretty good shot this turn, though Nandib does have a decent hand. Even Counterspell Medivh's Valet doesn't look that bad. There's no urgency to get drawing. Next turn he can coin out the Firelands Portal if he wants to.
Yeah, Dr. Hippie just playing it very, very carefully. Something we've seen from Ukraine, we also saw it from Russia, another very powerful European team, is just the ability to be incredibly patient. As casters, we want to rush, we want to point out everything that could happen this turn, but actually we find these teams just tend to take the line of, like, almost the line of most resistance. They just take their time, and down the line they get a whole bunch of value because of it.
Something I want to point out very briefly while Nandib makes this decision is that Dr. Hippie last week actually brought Handlock, or some variant of Handlock. He said to us, or Nyria said to us, that Dr. Hippie got pretty much the worst possible set of draws against Wife Coach who he was against, but it didn't work out so well. This week, Dr. Hippie is sticking to more conventional decks, it looks like.
Unfortunate pickup for him there, getting the Drake. He'd have loved to have got it off the Rathian.
Oh man, imagine that. It'd be the first time I think I've ever seen Rathian draw a dragon.
Yeah, I've seen it, but not in, like, this sort of deck. I've seen it draw dragons in decks where it's actually designed to draw dragons, but...
I don't think I've ever seen those decks before.
I think Kibler did a few dragon decks at one point with it in. But
Kibler
yeah,
made a dragon deck?
Yeah,
No
you know what I mean.
No.
But in Discover decks, I haven't yet seen it hit the Primordial Drake, and it's in a lot of decks. It's going to happen.
Let's see. So calling out Firelands Portal does seem like the perfect answer to that 4/5 body. Ooh, and Halazeel. Unfortunately, not that relevant to Nandeep here. He's not actually... he doesn't actually need any extra health. He's already on 27.
No, it's a decent sized minion, decent stat minion for a 5-drop, so
true.
he'll be okay with that.
He would have definitely preferred it after the Ragnaros hero power started coming down a few times and lowered his health right down. But you're right, the stats actually is something I overlooked there, but very, very high for on average for a 5-mana minion.
So what does Hippie want to do here? The good news for him is he doesn't have too many minions to deal with in this deck, so things like Execute, if he feels the need, are handy. But we're coming up towards Medivh in future turns. There's maybe an Alexstrasza, there may be an Antonidas, those cards. And so you don't really want to waste your Execute just on only a 4/6. So he's going to find a different way to do this, I think.
Production kindly showing us there exactly what Halazeel does. Very, very good in Mage, because Mage has a lot of spells that would heal Nandeep up if he needed it. But at the moment, as I mentioned before, not exactly necessary. Dr. Hippie finally playing that Battle Rage, drawing some cards. He's got a lot of answers there, and Armor Smith is vital against Mage.
Right, keeping back the Ravaging Ghoul there. Ravaging Ghoul and hit with your face was a thing he could have done. But valuing the 4 damage to his face, as well as the potential card draw from the Acolyte, as well as the potential synergy with the Armor Smith, valuing all those things ahead of maybe just having a little bit of board presence by using the Ravaging Ghoul there and the weapon.
Faceless Summoner seems like a pretty good play here from Nandeep. I'm sure he'll be happy that he picked that up earlier from the Valkyria. Unfortunately, Shadow Rager is not impactful. Oh, sorry, that's Amgam Rager.
Amgam Rager.
Not Shadow Rager. It looks shadowy, but no, it's Amgam
It
Rager.
does look indeed shadowy, I must admit. Can't argue with that one, much as I'd like to. And this is the benefit of saving the War Axe last turn. It's a nice, simple clear here.
On the flip side, isn't it the only Rager that would not have just died to Primordial Drake?
Probably.
I think the rest of them all have.
I'm not big on my Ragers.
You're not a Rager expert.
No.
You know Amgram Rager is Shadow Rager backwards, right?
Kind of. Kind of.
Just not quite that one.
Not quite that one, but kind of.
Magma Rager backwards. That's the one.
Peru here. Down to a whole bunch of spells. I said the other day, Meteor, one of the best spells in your opening hand in the decks without the polymorph. This one does have the polymorph. And you can see why. Just the ability, even for 6 mana, to take care of 1 Drake. You're gaining 2 mana, even on that deal, let alone the situation where you blow up a whole board.
It's a card that I think was grossly underrated in a lot of the set reviews previously. I remember seeing Trump saying that he believes it's just better than Flame Strike.
Right.
And actually, in a lot of circumstances, yeah, it is better than Flame Strike.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got distracted by the meme that, oh, it's 15 damage.
That's way too much damage.
Who cares?
Why do I want to draw
Well,
15?
It kills 8/8s.
Well, it turns out, yeah, I'd rather have the card that does more damage than you need, the one that does
Right,
that.
exactly. And that's shown to be a important thing. All right, so the Warrior here is starting to get the card advantage, as you'd expect, but the Mage is going into the turns where it starts to get a lot of damage. So Dr. Hippie won't need the board as such, other than just, he won't want to take any chip damage, so he'll want to play a taunt every turn, he'll want to get the quest complete, that's his job. But more importantly is how he gets this Ali Armorsmith down without it just getting blown up by a fireball.
Yeah. Gonna just drop it down now.
Right.
It does make sense. We can see there is the removal in Peru's hand, but ultimately, even if this Ali Armorsmith does get destroyed easily, there's still regular Armorsmith in Dr. Hippie's hand. There's still the Ravaging Ghoul that you pointed out earlier that's been held onto for that specific reason. Dr. Hippie will have a way of burst gaining armor at some point this game.
And this is why this is such a hard matchup to evaluate for a lot of people, because you have to play it differently every time. Hippie's on 6 out of 7 on the quest. He has Public Defender in his hand. He can complete the quest cheaply next turn as well, in fact.
Next turn and next hand.
He's on 17 health. He has armor gain in hand. He has ways to proc that armor gain in hand. He's just thinking, you know what, I can just go with the quest here as long as it doesn't get countered.
Yeah, that's going to be worth considering, especially with the second Armorsmith pickup there. 2 Armorsmiths and Ravaging Ghoul. They could all be played this turn. The Ravaging Ghoul would gain Dr. Hippie. What's that? That would be 8 armor. Is that enough, though? I don't think it is.
But he doesn't have to do it immediately. He has the option to do it over time.
Yeah.
So just because he has that option may encourage him to go for it. We'll know if he's going to go for it because he'll try to execute this 1-3 to play around counterspell.
Ah, okay, yeah. And that's weird, that.
And he doesn't really want to execute a 1-3.
Actually, does he need to play around counterspell? He doesn't need to play any spells here. So, if he plays Armor Smith...
Because Sulfuris counts as a weapon, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking Armor Smith, Acolyte, Ravaging Ghoul, but you trade in the Sheep first and you trade in the Bloodhoof Brave first, so you gain even more armor.
Yeah, I'm forgetting that it's a weapon. Silly me, because I've seen too many rogue quests countered.
Yeah, one of the frustrating things about playing against the Quest Warrior is that, yeah, it's one of the few quests that there's no way of stopping it. You can't Dirty Rat out the weapon. You can't counterspell the weapon, as you said. There is just no way of stopping that from going off.
All right, so completing it the old-fashioned way with just big stuff and getting control of that board.
The bigger board Dr. Hippie can get, the bigger reward he's going to have later with the double Armor Smith. So he's really hoping that Nandeeb doesn't mass clear this board if possible. If he can gain something like 15 armor from the Armor Smiths, sorry, which looks like it's becoming possible, that's going to be a huge swing for him.
Meanwhile, from Nandeeb's point of view, he's in a really strange position. He can see that he's not far off winning. I mean, Pyroblast into Fireball and a couple of pings wins the game, except he knows that Dr. Hippie's got a handful of armor gain. But he's in a position where he can just decide to go for the burn. He has the Ooze to answer the Sulfuris, at least in some respect. But he is losing the board, which is a bit weird this early on, to lose the board and to lose the hand size.
Not long for Nandeeb to decide how he wants to end this turn. Firelands Portal, great pickup from Primordial Glyph often. Gonna actually just go straight for the face. I like this. He's got 16 damage ready to go in hand.
This is going to end pretty tragically for Peru, but it makes a lot of sense because of all that damage in hand. But this is where Ukraine have played really patiently, really well. Now they can just gain 1 million armor.
So let's see, how do we do this? Double Armor Smith, Ravaging, trade in the Sheep into something. Then you play the Ravaging Ghoul. Maybe execute the red Mana Worm if you want to. But you could just trade in the Bloodhoof Brave into it after the Whirlwind. Yeah,
you can trade in the Acolyte, the Sheep, and the Bloodhoof, or you can trade in the Curator, sorry, or you can trade in the Curator and the Bloodhoof, just however you want, really. You can put the Sheep and the Acolyte into the 1-3. There's so many good things happening here for Ukraine.
I think he gains about, I think Dr. Hippie gains around 18 armor this turn. When you take the trades into consideration as well. Oh, if he can drop Dirty Rat as well, or another minion as well as the Ravaging Ghoul, then he gains even more. Drop down Public Defender, and then that's even more armor than what I just said.
And you said a lot, and a lot more than a lot is even more.
Who needs that warrior hero power? Who needs to tank up these days, Neil?
Who needs Sulfuris?
Right.
But it's just another, it is a stopgap, and he did get in a position where Sulfuris could have just been an aggressive out. But this is just much better for him, just getting a whole bunch of armor. This is like flashbacks to Patron Warrior games. And yeah, beat this. Mage, you're not burning me in the face from there. Alex Strazer's not going to help you.
Now, briefly about Nandeeb. Kishtar mentioned to me just earlier today that he's the guy that puts a lot of the work in. He comes up with the lineups. He's the captain of the team. He's the anchor of the team. He's the guy that was in the interview we heard earlier. Sounds like he is a lot of the driving force of Team Peru. He's really going to want to win this game and set a good example for the rest of his team. But these Armor Smiths are causing a huge problem for him.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how they get out of this. They have to get rid of the Armor Smiths.
I don't think you start with a Volcanic Potion somehow. You don't really want to give your opponent an extra 14 health if you can possibly.
You don't, but this board's getting out of control. You've got to deal with the board as well.
So you have to Frostbolt one first. Because that does dramatically reduce the amount of armor they gain. And then what do you do? Well,
you have to assess, do you think you can ever get the board? Like, what minions do you have in this deck? You might have a Medivh, which could generate some sort of board later on. You've got some Mana Worms, you've got another Mana Worm to come, I believe. You're in a world of trouble here. And they're just going to carry on not trying to give too much armor away, trying to get some sort of board, but oh my goodness. Ukraine are just going to do this the old-fashioned warrior way, which is get a million armor against the mage. And this mage plays enough like Freeze Mage. That strategy is fine.
Do you remember old school Control Warrior with Justicar versus old school Freeze Mage?
Yeah. Most of the games lasted 1 turn because whoever's playing the Freeze Mage just went bottom right buddy and gave up.
Yeah, or at least waited until the Justicar came down on turn 6 and then... But then the Evolved Kobold came out.
Yeah, when the Kobold started happening, then people didn't bottom right buddy it until about turn 5.
And then there was a bottom right buddy. But this looks like a situation where Nandeeb, maybe considering it calmly, takes a sip of his drink there, though. Unfortunately, the Alexstrasza, one of the best cards in this deck for getting your opponent into death range, isn't going to do much. In fact, it's only going to heal Dr. Hippie in this game.
Yeah, waiting for the card that says, just remove all your opponent's armor. It would be a bad card, but people would like it for situations like this.
Oh no, please don't print that card.
It would just be the same as Eater of Secrets, just call it Eater of Armor.
Please don't print that card.
Eater of Armor? What's wrong with that? We do this every day and explain why I've not been employed as my card-making abilities, and Eater of Armor is one of the reasons why.
I know you send that application every week, Neil, but one day they'll like the idea.
Maybe. All right, he's decided that 47 health is actually enough to start getting on with this. I kind of agree.
47
Especially given he could sleep with the fishes if he really gets bored.
Yeah, how is Nandeeb ever going to deal 47 damage, ever? Primordial Glyph is probably a good start.
Probably involves breaking the rules of the tournament.
Let's grab 5 Pyroblasts somehow. Frost Nova's not too bad, but none of these cards actually allow Nandeeb to deal any damage. Also, the Acolytes of Pain, the Armor Smiths, both still continuing to survive. So yeah, as you said, Dr. Hippie can sleep with the fishes and gain another 10 armor if he wants. This is absurd. Oh, not quite 10, because the Ravaging Ghoul hasn't taken damage. Another 8 armor.
It is pretty ridiculous. Of course, if you don't draw both Armor Smiths, it just doesn't always happen, which is why this matchup isn't a complete walkover. But we have been seeing that the Warrior's been doing really well against the Mage in this particular tournament with very good players playing it. Of course, Dr. Hippie, a great Mage player in his own right, so he'll have a very good grasp of exactly what to do against these anyway, as you can see.
Finally, the Armor Smiths have been defeated.
Kind of.
But
maybe a moral victory moving them from the board, but I think they won the war.
Their legacy lives on in terms of the 46 armor that Dr. Hippie has. 57 health. Oh my goodness, Whirlwind picked up as well. Peru, if Peru could see that, Nandeeb would be very glad that he got rid of the Armor Smith.
I don't think Nandeeb's going to be very glad of anything until they start this next game.
Yeah, but imagine this turn being Whirlwind plus Primordial Drake with the double Armor Smiths there. My goodness.
I don't want to imagine things like that. I like sleeping in the evenings.
Dr. Hippie would like to imagine those things right now, though it doesn't matter too much as this Ragnar's Hero Power is going to do its job in a few turns. You asked me right at the start of this game, does Dr. Hippie keep the quest or throw it away? He kept it, he took the risk, it paid off, and now the quest is winning him the game. Though it's unfair to give the quest all the credit. I think the credit goes to the Armor Smiths here.
Yeah, exactly, and this is the discussion that keeps going and going, partly fueled by people like myself who won't let it drop. But does the quest actually matter enough in this matchup? I'm not going to argue with Dr. Hippie.
No.
He's quite good at this game, and the whole of Ukraine also are quite good at this game. But it seems like it doesn't ever play a major part in the game winning. Maybe it just plays a part often enough.
Great, Fireball. That's what you need, Nandeeb. You just need another 5 of them.
Right, at least he clears the board.
Actually, you need more than 5 Fireballs.
Clear both the 6 health minions, pink face, they're down to 45 armor.
Great.
I thought you were supposed to be the optimist in this relationship, Dan.
It's hard to be an optimist if you're looking at this board from Peru's side, Neil. It doesn't matter how optimistic you are. If a game is unwinnable, a game is unwinnable. And at this point, I don't think anyone would argue with me that this game is unwinnable for Peru.
Dan and I testing out the Austria versus Greece thing here. Austria, Dan and Dan, nice and happy with each other. Chat it through. Me and Dan, we just act like Greece and shout at each other the whole card.
At least we don't punch.
At least you don't. I don't mind if I punch or not. All right. And so Nandeeb is just going through the motions here, but why not? I mean, I can give you a good reason why not. It's because he's not going to win, but I'm never going to blame anybody in any game for not conceding, even if it can be a little bit unusual at times to watch it happen.
I usually dislike calling a game unwinnable because whenever I say it, usually something mad happens.
Oh, he'll have Yogg.
I mean, it would have to be Yogg and...
He will have Yogg.
It would have to be Yogg and 6 Pyroblasts to Dr. Hippie's face.
I mean, weird things can happen with Yogg. You can generate a board with Call of the Wild and maybe Frostbolt a face or gain some armor.
It would need to do a heck of a lot
It will need to
more
go
than
crazy,
that.
but Yogg can generate boards and it can put you in a safe spot. So yeah, is actually a thing that can happen. And that's why they're playing on.
Okay, Mandeep can also generate a board,
Right.
but I don't think Nandeep has got the time to benefit from this board because he's only got 3 health left. 3 secrets down. I believe one of them was a spellbender, one of them was an ice block, and the third, I'm actually not sure what the third was. It's either an ice barrier or a counter spell.
Yep, not sure, must admit.
It's a counter spell.
I'm interested to see, actually, they've played a lot of spells. And so, with the Medivh, who knows what might happen. But yeah, it has to be Yogg. And if it is, it has to be one of the best Trollden moment Yoggs we've ever seen.
Yep, I can get behind that.
Thing with Yogg, even to this day, if you get the first card, if the first spell you cast is something like Call of the Wild,
It means Yogg.
suddenly the Yogg doesn't die,
Yeah.
and then anything can go nuts. Like we've seen crazy Yoggs in the past before the nerf, where it just ruins a game almost. And if it does start off with Call of the Wild, it can still do those crazy things.
The problem is that there's still that 57 armor to deal with, and Dr. Hippie has a Brawl in his hand. So even if Yogg created the best board you can imagine, Brawl would have just shut that down most of the time.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. It would have needed to be like 6 Pyroblasts to the face, and that's that. Either way, no Yogg Saran picked up. Nandeep has no way of surviving the next Ragnar's Hero Power. Pings his own face. Dr. Hippie, after all of this time, takes game number 1.
Yeah, Dr. Hippie raises a fist in delight that that game is finally over. The terrors of the potential 5 Pyroblast Yogg have been avoided.
I don't know, Neil. I think when you're as far ahead as Dr. Hippie was, you don't mind if the game goes on and on and on. Just like, yep, I'm going to win this soon. Just enjoying my moment.
This wasn't a moment, though, was it? It was like half an hour.
It was a lot of moments.
There's a lot of enjoyable moments for Dr. Hippie. Moving into the second game of this matchup, Peru have to choose between Rogue and Shaman. Ukraine have to choose between Rogue and Mage. Now, that seems a pretty easy one because Rogue and Shaman are both weak to Mage.
Oh, funny that. One of them's picked Shaman, one of them's picked Mage, which is exactly where you were about to go with that.
Yeah.
Rogues just don't win against those decks most of the time. I guess Rogue versus Mage isn't as heavily favoured to the Mage, but Shaman is pretty favoured against Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, Rogue's interesting against Shaman. If it's Miracle Rogue, it can actually be favoured against the Shaman. If it's Quest Rogue, I think the gap is narrowing, but Rogue against Mage is just a disaster. The Mage just blasts you in the face the whole game and you just lose.
So it's going to be Nyria versus Chichisaski. Again, Nyria. I don't even know whether to keep saying stuff about Ukraine. You guys all know it by now. Nyria, the guy that's been dominating
Right.
HCT this year, is I think the biggest thing that's worth saying about him at the moment. He was at the Bahamas. He's going to Shanghai. He'll probably go to wherever the next location is for the next championship.
Yeah, and he's a player that's been very strong throughout all of Hearthstone's history and never quite had that massive win that maybe he's the next guy on the caster list of Hoys and Muzzies that we say, he's never won anything, and then he just goes and wins something. We're looking for a new guy like that. Nyria may be on that list.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't take it away from him, though. He's often been referred to as the Mini Kalento. I think the guys do.
Mini Kalento.
Mini Kalento? Have you not heard that one?
I've not heard that.
I've heard him being referred to as a
I wouldn't mind being referred to as Mini Kalento.
well, because
Mini anything, to be honest, would be a pretty good start.
that's fair. You're like a mini second-rate bruiser, Neil.
A mini second-rate bruiser. Small-time bruiser.
Like a no, mini second-rate bruiser. There's nothing that small about that card. Anyways, we're just waiting for a couple of minutes for Peru to get ready to play. So we expect this to be Gunther Mage versus Evolve Shaman. I think it's safe to say that. We haven't seen many variations of those two decks over the last few days.
Yeah, with Ukraine, I wouldn't be totally shocked if they brought Freeze Mage with Hippie on the team. He's a big fan of that deck, and we've seen them play it before, but I think Gunther Mage is accepted as just slightly better in this format, at least. We've seen Freeze Mage breaking out in quite a few tournaments recently, but again, tournament format, this is still a tournament. This is a team tournament with a different format. Not quite as popular. And with the Shaman, if it's not Token Shaman, I will be very surprised. However, again, if you're going to play Shaman with Rogue, you know you're weak to Mage. Maybe there is some tech in there. Maybe we'll see an Eater of Secrets, which would be really weird, but maybe there'll be something to cover the gap.
Sure, that makes sense. I doubt we'll see the tech Sea Giant, which is one that's been added in a lot,
Right.
specifically for the mirror match. I guess it's possible, but maybe if that was in there, he'd be less likely to take it instead of the Rogue. Though, as you said, Mage is pretty strong against Rogue, so maybe you do take it anyway. I've got to admit, I don't know that much about Ichiji Sasuke, though Nandeep did mention in the interview that he's been to prelims a lot.
Yeah, I haven't got the stats with me, which is... I'm sorry, guys. I normally have, but I haven't got his stats with me for the prelims, I don't think. I'll have a quick look in a moment.
But even the fact that he's been there is an achievement. Like,
I mean, yeah, you're getting to the top 128, top 64, depending which year he made it in. So, yeah.
not
fantastic.
a guy to be taken lightly at all then. Though, I think any player matched against Nyria are going to be feeling a little bit nervous.
Yeah, they are, but he's got the backing of a very excitable team, and Peru are in the fantastic position of having already overachieved.
Yeah.
And at least in the eyes of the observers, so the pressure is completely gone.
In the eyes of them as well. Like Nandeep said in the interview, they didn't expect to get through the first stage.
Right.
They thought when they played against USA, they were already out. They were playing for fun, yet still managed to 3-0 them. And then
Perhaps that's the key to beating the USA.
playing for fun, right?
Have fun, don't come down to those American level, and just enjoy yourselves.
And then after that, they played against the UK. They did their research. They really tried for it. They learned that if they put their mind into it, they watch the right streams, they do the right research, they learned that they are able to 3-0 when they actually try to do it. So they've moved forwards from there. Greece did put a stop to their winning streak. Deathalor had said that he wants to be the person to put a stop to them because every winning streak has to end at some point. They did it successfully. There's nothing saying that Peru won't do it again.
Deathalor, the Brock Lesnar of Hearthstone. That's one you won't understand.
Yeah.
But you guys will, so that's fine.
Do you want to go any further, or should we just move on?
No,
from
just
that?
carry on.
All right, let's move on from that. I expect big things from Peru then. I can't help but wonder how playing against Ukraine will affect their attitude, like how nervous they'll be. That being said, playing against the USA would have made them equally nervous, I imagine. Names like Firebat, Dog, etc., Amnesiac, and Hot Meowth. So if they can beat them 3-0, they can beat Ukraine. It's not going to be 3-0 today. They're already down one.
It's not.
All right, we just found out that there's something going wrong on Peru's end, so we are going to go to a very short break. Sorry about that, guys. We'll be back with game number 2 in just a moment.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.
welcome back to Hearthstone Global Games, where we're not going to waste any more of your time. I believe that Peru is ready to go. What was that?
I was going to say, we are going to waste some more of their time because that's what we're good at.
You just love wasting our time, Neil. You like wasting their time, you like wasting my time. You just quietly went behind the scenes and cut some wires and made sure Peru took even longer. But anyway, no, they're not. We're back. It's going to be Shaman versus Mage. We talked about this already. Both players making the obvious pick there, passing up on Rogue, because Rogue is kind of weak against Shaman, weak against Mage. And yeah, the game is starting. I can see it out of the corner of my eye. So let's jump right in. Uchiha Sasuke versus Nyria.
You asked for it.
All right, so Uchiha Sasuke playing predictably the Evolved Shaman, Nyria playing
Predictably,
Mage.
actually, either.
just Mage at the moment.
Even Freeze Mage is relatively predictable, though. Like, it's not going to be a shock if we suddenly see Freeze Mage cards.
This is just hard for the Shaman because their early pressure just gets removed, and then the Mage puts enough minion pressure down to deal with the little guys that the Shaman makes. 2 attack minions work fine against those 0-3s when you've got a ping for backup, and then the Evolve and Doppelgangster is really your win condition. You have to do that and hope you get a good one. And sometimes you don't, so you lose to Flame Strike, and sometimes you do, and then the Mage still has Fireball. Just works out to be a really difficult match.
Looking at these opening hands, Firefly into Jade Claws is pretty much what Uchiha Sasuke wants. On the other side, I don't believe Nyria's mulliganed yet. We're just waiting. He just throws away the Frostbolt, keeps both Medivh's Valet. Okay, so that makes sense. He's planning on playing Archaeologist on 2, Secret on 3, double Medivh's Valet on 4. What do you think of that?
Yep, seems good to me. And he's picked up Frost Nova, so it's going to be at the very least a very controlling version of Mage. There have been several hybrid builds now. If that comes up, we'll explain it when it does.
There have been, but the typical guess from this hand is that it's probably a Freeze Mage, as you predicted a little bit earlier.
Like I say, though, with Shaman here, they know that Shaman and Rogue are weak to Mage, and I don't think teams in this top 24 are leaving too much to chance. So either it's a total misread as to where they thought the Mage was going to be, or maybe we'll see a trick or two up the sleeve here.
Like you said earlier, there may be an Eater of Secrets.
Doesn't really make sense, but yeah.
Ice Barrier 2. I don't know. Like this matchup, specifically the Freeze Mage, is just so favored against the Shaman. It's going to be really hard for Uchiha Sasuke to pull this one away. We can see that already. Though he's had a good start. He can develop the Flame Elemental if he wants to. Potentially even going to have a good Bloodlust to play on turn 5.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the team's assessment of what's a good matchup and what isn't just doesn't line up with everybody else's. Sometimes you get 4 players on a team say, what do you think about Shaman against Mage? And they go, and they go, well, if it happens, do we really mind? It'd be like, again.
Doomsday Frost Nova now represented in Nyria's hand. Again, not really further of a hint that it's Freeze Mage, because these cards can be seen in the hybrid version, though, again, chances are likely that it is. Regardless, the combo is insane. It's very strong against Shaman, unless the Shaman has Devolve, which, as we can see, Uchiha Sasuke does. Luckily for Nyria, I don't think that matters too much, as this board isn't out of control just yet.
Yeah, it's not out of control at all. So nice when you can sit behind that block, so you don't ignore Bloodlust. You can never ignore Bloodlust. There's going to be a lot of damage. You don't want to be procced, but they've got to have it, and you've got to have an accident, so.
I mean, right now, I think Doomslayer Coin Frost Nova seems okay. We can see the Devolve there. It's something that Nyria's going to be considering.
Ping Valet is also decent enough here, depending how they're intending to use that Valet, whether they want to just use it now to dominate the board for a while, or if they want to use it later and start taking down totems after they've cleared the board.
Even double Valet, it wouldn't be horrible here. Just take out both or 2 of the 1/2s. It's not necessary for dealing damage later on. Freeze Mage just wins the late game against the Evolved Shaman if they can keep all of their threats at bay. But Nyria going to go with your play, ping 1, put the body on the boards. Just a nice middle ground there. And now the Bloodlust isn't dealing much damage at all. What's that? 12, 13, 15, 17 with the Jade Claws.
Yeah, one thing that Freeze Mage players like to do and have to do to survive is to be insanely greedy. It's one of the few classes, one of the few decks where you get rewarded consistently for being overly greedy. So pinging away 1/1s, hoping to get a Medivh's Valet to stick later so it can repeatedly remove totems is definitely a part of keeping that back.
Nyria going to be spending some time considering when he wants to play that Doomsayer Frost Nova combination I mentioned earlier. It's possible that he's trying to save it so that he can set up for something like maybe Alexstrasza, maybe Anantonitis or something a little bit later on. He needs to pick up another board clear sooner rather than later. His board clears are how you beat this deck. He wants his Blizzards, his Flame Strike if he has them, maybe another Frost Nova Doomsayer. They're the cards that Nyria are looking for at the moment.
Yeah, and if you can successfully identify it as Freeze Mage, you have to constantly ask yourself, do we want to evolve now? Because there's no point going to turn 8 against Freeze Mage and playing Doppelgangster Evolve and just getting Frost Nova and Blizzarded out of the game.
Right.
So when you're absolutely sure it's Freeze Mage 100%, at that point you just evolve what you've got and hope for the best.
All right, now Nyria looked like he was aiming at the Medivh's Valet again, just trying to keep this bay at board this board
I
at
didn't
bay
like to say anything, Dan.
bit by bit. Is Doomsday Frost Nova even worth considering? Maybe you just
It
Ice
is,
Barrier.
but going into the Aya turn is maybe putting them off. But I think the Jades are only going to be 2/2s. So
Yeah.
the one that comes from Aya will be a 3/3, and then he can kill that with the Valet the turn after. That would actually be fine.
Yeah, I don't really mind Ice Barrier too much. The problem with Ice Barrier is that you can't just Ice Barrier ping. Nothing dies to a ping at the moment. Ice Barrier plus Medivh's Valet, I guess, is okay.
The thing with the Frost Nova Doomsayer is you can, if you do it now, then you do give Peru the license to just wait with their evolve.
Yeah.
You kind of don't want them to have that. They don't want to have an easy Doppelgangster evolve.
Right. Yeah, just Ice Barrier ping. That's the way that he takes in the end. Still got 30 health now when you consider the Ice Barrier. Still got an Ice Block. There's the Doppelgangster from Uchiha Sasuke.
Yeah, and got to decide whether he wants to do it immediately. And at this point now they've seen the Ice Barrier, they will have a much better view of what the deck is, because most Gunther builds now dropping the Ice Barrier in favour of counter spells, I feel.
Yep.
I think that's a fair read.
I think that's
they'll take
fair.
this as Freeze Mage now.
Yeah, it looks very much like a Freeze Mage. Second Frost Nova there. The problem is, again, there's so much overlap with these decks, with the hybrid versions of the decks and everything.
So a problem here for Ukraine is they've got all the pieces in place nearly. They can clear and freeze forever. They've got the Alexstrasza, but they've only got 6 damage in hand, and they've got no card draw. They would love right now to be able to actually start drawing some cards and getting through their deck into, so they can just go Alexstrasza, kill you.
It's inevitable that they draw something that they need soon, be it card draw, be it Antonidas, which may or may not be in the deck, but I
Right.
like the Frost Nova play here. You can even Medivh's Valet the Aya and then Frost Nova Doomsayer to guarantee that you're clearing everything.
The only problem with that is you end up killing your own Medivh's Valet. If you Frost Nova Doomsayer first, and then Valet on the turn after the
that's
Aya procs, then you get to play the Valet onto what would become an empty board after you kill the 3/3 Golem.
That's where Ukraine ends up going. Now no space on the board for Peru to drop that Doppelgangster now. They wouldn't want to anyway. Going to have to be quite patient with that. Though they are going to get rid of that Doomsayer, turn it into a Firefly.
Yeah, that's a bit of a downgrade, in fairness.
Yeah, Nyria.
All right.
Nyria would love to have his second Doomsayer here. Or, like I said before, a
Does he
Blizzard.
even care? If he Frost Novas now, how does he get to turn 10 for Pyroblast? So you can Frost Nova now.
Yeah.
Then next turn you can coin Alexstrasza.
yeah.
Turn after you can Medivh's Valley Frostbolt face, and if there's no healing, you could Pyro face the turn after that. However, the healing that does exist can come from the Stonehill Defender. They can get Hot Spring Guardian, and this is only overkilling by 2. Hot Spring Guardian would be a saviour in that situation, but I think they're going to go for that line.
Did you take pings into account there as well?
I didn't. No,
Oh,
I
you
think
didn't.
there's an extra ping in there somewhere that I didn't bother.
There's one extra ping. There's space to play the second Ice Block with the Medivh's Valet and the Frostbolt. This does look like a solved lethal. Not only that, but this Firefly is likely to get an extra hit in too.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll try and kill the Firefly off so that Eater of Secrets can't be played. I guess there's Alexstrasza coming down. No, Alexstrasza's coming down,
Yeah,
so that's just silly.
That was a really interesting
Just
point,
for a
though.
second there, it made sense, and I realised actually an 8/8 is quite a big thing.
There would be times previously with Freeze Mage versus Handlock decks, where, or even Reno lock decks, where they try and keep the Warlock board full, so there's no place to play a Reno, no place to play a Jiraxxus, even for that little heal, because even Jiraxxus can't be played when there's a full board.
Evolving here to try and unfreeze something, maybe get a charge minion.
Not great, is it?
Not great, but you're never going to play the Doppelgangster, so you might as well try and get something. And now I think we're just going to go for that basically solve lethal. It's not quiet, but it's near enough solve lethal, like Stonehill outs, Doppelgangster outs. Can't even think what Doppelgangster out would be. Lightwell or something.
From like, Well, yeah,
Not, sorry, an Evolve out, not a
yeah,
Doppelganger out.
Right.
Evolve a 1, drop into a light well. Is that the card I'm thinking of?
Yeah, that is the card you're thinking of, but even that's not that impactful.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. I mean, yeah.
And it's quite easy to play around.
And with the finance portal as well now, things are even easier.
Bloodlust, a very obvious play this time for Future Sasuke. I'm sure that their team are going to be doing the maths right now, trying to guarantee that they can pop that ice block as low as possible, preferably on 1, whilst also dealing with the Alexstrasza.
So again, I don't think there's any reason why they would be an Eater, but it is just a little bit interesting to me that they played Shaman with Rogue as their picks, knowing that Mage would be a weak spot, so maybe there's a tiny chance there is an Eater in here if they can prop this.
Popping the block at 3 there. That's as low as they could get it. I didn't count myself. I'm not sure if there was a lower value.
I don't think it needs to be lower, right? Like,
is fine.
every single minion you have is 3 or bigger if you get another Bloodlust, and if even so, you're going to have a 3 attack minion to go in there.
Even a Jade Lightning would do it, right?
It will be fine.
I guess Jade Claws is the card that now doesn't
Sure.
support Nyria, which would have done before, and he's played 1 Jade Claws already. Archaeologist, another secret. That would mean
Ice block, 6 to face, plus the ping would be 7. That's what we described, and that plays around Hot Spring Guardian as well.
Excuse me.
yeah. So what can Peru actually play this turn that saves them?
Eater of Secrets. I'm calling it. I'm not calling it at all, but it's possibly there.
You're right, though. That would be a miracle draw from Yuchicha Sasuke here. Let's see if that's what it is. Nope, it's a Flame Tongue Totem. We're going to see the concede right here, I imagine, from Peru. Oh, no, he's going to... Of course, you check to see if...
Yeah, you actually check to see, yeah. I have seen people playing against streamers before where this has been Ice Block or Counterspell, just concede as the other player.
I think it's happened in tournaments before.
Wouldn't surprise
There was
me.
the situation where Navi lost... Oh, no, that wasn't to a secret. That was to a bluff with a Leroy.
That was to a Leroy,
But,
yeah.
but it's the same type of deal, right? You check for everything, you wait, and make sure your opponent does win the game first. Because as far as Peru knows, there's no burn damage in Ukraine's hands. So I was way early on the concede there. I would have lost that game early for no reason if I was playing.
I think they're trying to work out if there's any point evolving here. Lightwell, I think it's Lightwell, heals you at the start of your turn.
Yeah,
So that's not an out.
You're right. That's not going to do it even. Well, let's find out anyway. Maybe they have thought of something. Rag Lightlord from
I
the
mean, they don't know they're dead. Maybe Nyria's got a handful of minions.
Rag Lightlord from the Blaze Caller would have done it.
Ah, nice call.
But unfortunately, Alakir not quite. Ragnaros, Lightlord, Pyroblast going to end the game. Ukraine take a 2-0 lead against Peru, but Nyria just another day in the office for him. Little smile, but mostly just, yep, all right, my job done.
2-0 going up now is the Warlock battle. It's going to be Warlock and Warrior for Peru, Warlock and Druid for Ukraine. Now, I feel if you're going with Warlock, Druid and Warrior are both classes that are very guesswork-based. It can be Pirates, it can be Taunt, it can be Aggro Druid, it can be Jade. But I feel that you go slightly more towards Jade Druid and slightly more towards Taunt Warrior because your Warlock can be built as an aggressive deck, kind of.
So when you said Warlock battle, you mean where Warlock battles and tries to be played, but neither player picks it?
That's probably the case, yeah, I should imagine that's the thing.
We're about to find out. Let's take a look at the match that's coming up next. And lo and behold, neither Warlock has been picked. Kishtar on the probably Quest Warrior, Nick Chipper on the probably Jade Druid.
Yeah, I don't think they're even that probable. They're just like sort of 55%ers,
Okay.
right? Just because if you want to make your Warlock do something, because your Warlock can be Blood Bloom as well, but it's likely to be a zoo, and
I
therefore they're
mentioned-
likely not to be aggressive.
I mentioned that last week Dr. Hippie was playing a Warlock deck. He actually did play it. I believe that was a Blood Bloom, or it was a
Right.
Handlock anyway.
Right.
We didn't actually see Blood Bloom. They did tell us in the interview that their draw sequence was very, very strange. So it was difficult to actually guess what they were. Like they said that they drew pretty much the worst possible cards they could have drawn. I think it was the only game in the series that they lost.
Right.
So I actually kind of did wonder if they would pick Warlock, but nope, didn't happen. And now we're going to see another, I guess, Control Fiesta.
Yeah, and Peru up against it now. They really... You don't ever want to lose, but losing 3-0 if you've lost 3-1, there's 4 third-place spots up for grabs. And so losing narrow games is important.
Actually, if Ukraine's Warlock was Blood Bloom, does that mean maybe the Druid could be Token
Yeah,
Druid?
for
More
sure, it
likely?
definitely could be. So it's like you say, it's still guesswork. it was just like a slight edge that way. It most certainly could be aggro druid.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out very soon. Let's take a quick look at Kishtar again.
Yep.
I'm guilty of still not knowing all that much about the players from Peru. They're a team that, if they do manage to progress further in this competition, that everyone should be taking notice of.
Yeah, that interview earlier was very helpful,
It
really
was.
to build things
But
up.
Kishtar's a very big streamer. In Nandib's words from that interview, he's the guy that calms everyone down. He senses how they're all feeling. Maybe if the more pro, the more competitive players, if they're, being all tilty and losing and getting stressed, Kishtar like calms them all down.
That's a special skill because if I'm in a serious tournament and somebody who's not so serious goes, don't worry about it, calm down. That's not how it works. So he needs to have a special skill for doing that.
And if he's got his way of doing it, he's got his way of doing it. He also said to me earlier today, he said that he's had so much fun with this tournament. He said it's one of his best experiences playing Hearthstone. And he'd like to thank Blizzard for putting it on, and he'd like to thank everyone who voted him in. He really hopes to be able to take part again next year. Turns out it's going to be the Pirate Warrior versus the Jade Druid. So maybe that indicates that Peru's Warlock was maybe more of a Blood Bloom type of Warlock.
Could have been indeed, or they could just feel that this is good enough as a, like I say, if everyone knows you probably won't play your Warlock, you just write it off and play an unpredictable deck. Unpredictable class. Druid and Warrior both fit that bill. And this is a matchup I find really interesting because I personally think the Druid's a decent but not massive favourite, and I know other people think Pirate's his favourite here.
I think it's marginal. I don't think it's anywhere near as favoured as it was before Ungaro came out. I think the addition of the Gluttonous Ooze we can see there is a big deal. Primordial Drake, if the Jade Druid gets to turn 8, is a big deal. Earthen Scales is a big deal, and Tatar Creeper, if it's in the deck, is a big deal. So there are a lot of extra little edges that Jade Druid does have in this matchup, though if the Warrior does still get the insane start, it can be hard for the Jade Druid to keep up.
Yeah, Jade Druid here, though. Feral Rage won't be used almost certainly for the armor. It may be, but it's unlikely. They could ooze down the War Axe. They can Feral Rage down any 3/4 minions that are played. They can Wrath any 3/3s or 2/3s or X3s. And then they can Nourish, and then the turn after that they can play Primordial Drake, and all the time they're going to be drawing more cards. That's just from what we can see. That's without them drawing anything else. Along the way, they do need to pick up some minions, but the thing with the Warrior, if the Druid goes 1 for 1 for 4 or 5 turns and doesn't take much damage, inevitably it just picks up Auctioneer and wins the game with an Earthen Scales.
It does look like Peru are going to have a hard time to get ahead here. The Warax triple upgrade plus the Captain Greenskin looks like a dream come true, but that Gluttonous Ooze is just going to do so much work.
Now, what do you do here? I think you Wrath the Captain, but that is mana inefficient in a big way. Obviously, you don't want to use the Feral Rage for not armor if you can help it, and they can help it, so they're just going to go with this. And Kishtar's just going to be in a world of pain here. This is going to get oozed.
Yeah, I wonder how much he puts into this Warax now. Like, upgrading is tempting because it does mean that you get the immediate extra 1 face damage. Now look at Nick Chipper. Look at that face. Like, oh, look at that. All right.
He's a happy bunny with this play. The Ooze is going to come down and destroy this weapon. Jade Idol just to slot in the extra 1 mana here as well. And Peru are having a bad turn come their way.
Yeah, there's still a Captain Greenskin. There's still another upgrade in Kishtar's hand. So if he can pick up an extra Fiery Warax this turn, or if he can pick up an Arcanite Reaper from turn 5 onwards, he's still going to be in an okay spot. I think Corcoran Elite is really the only playable card here for Kishtar.
This is just horrible because that Nick Chip has managed to get some semblance of board. It means that he'll almost certainly be able to he will be able to nourish for mana and Wrath something if he wants. He may have enough time to nourish for cards, which is like an auto win. But the chances are he's still going to have to nourish for mana.
Nick Chipper's reactions are hilarious this game. Look at the value that Ooze is getting, though. Not only has it dealt with a 4 attack and 3 durability Fiery Warax, or 2 durability, I guess, after the first attack, the 3/3 body now going to just trade into the Corcoran Elite.
So this is the decision turn. If he nourishes for cards and trades, he will get some more removal. Going forward, he'll be okay. If he nourishes for mana
and Wraths,
it's a little bit dangerous in terms of your future card draws.
Right.
But really, honestly, not much else will go wrong. So this is the decision turn. This is where they've actually got to make a choice. see how they go. It's a tricky one. You almost certainly just Jade Idol as tempo, even though it's your second one at some point, not necessarily this turn as well.
Yeah,
there's no need.
No need to go infinite against the Pirate Warrior that's lost by turn 10 anyway. Nourishing for mana, playing the Wrath. I do like this play a lot.
Yeah.
Means that he can play Primordial Drake next turn if he wants to. Feral Rages are going to fit into the curve much more easily. Nick Chipper doesn't really need to draw at the moment. He's got what he needs for the time being.
Right, exactly, and it can go wrong, but their future draws, you've got to trust your deck. Like if you draw an Innovate next turn and then an Innovate the turn after, those sort of cards can go wrong. But almost everything else in his deck is pretty good right now. Wild Growth's a bit of a whiff until turn 10.
What now?
But the fact he's not had to use his Feral Rage is gigantic.
Okay, I think Berserker not going to be cleared up quite as easily, but...
Well, he's just Feral Rage, it's still on 24.
Well, of course. The fact that Kishtar feeling the need to play the second upgrade just to get that deckhand charge, just to make this trade. Oh man, this game looks already... Oh, look, Kishtar's... Okay, I was going to say he'd rage quit his camera there.
Oh, don't worry about the Feral Rage, kids. We've got a better option.
And look at this curve too. Swipe, Jade Idol, Feral Rage for armor. If he even feels the need to, he might not. You're right, he's still on 24.
Yeah, just take his time here. Keep that Feral Rage for removal, almost certainly. It does fit into his curve nicely now, but you get 1 armor anyway.
Sure. 1 armor is as good as 8 armor here. Not a problem at all. Kishtar just... He looks like he's had enough. Kishtar, Peru, already 0-1, I believe. Yep, in their group, having lost 3-1 to Peru. They're about to lose 3-0 to Ukraine. It's going to be very hard, if not impossible now, for Peru to qualify to the top 16 of this tournament.
And this is why you save that Feral Rage and don't just gain that armor. This is an important clear. This is where things could have just got a bit sketchy with the Spellbreaker onto the Drake. With Heroic Strike in hand, there would have been a lot of damage go face. But instead, he's still weaving in those armor gains, and now he's grabbing the board. And now there's basically nothing in Peru's deck that could possibly make a mess here. But you do have to be careful. If your brain turns off as Druid, the Pirates do just kill you.
Yeah. We're at the stage of the game that we mentioned right at the start where the Druid does get more and more favored. Picking up something like an Earthen Scales here, even just to use on Primordial Drake, an extra 5 armor never goes amiss.
And you know what's annoying here is that Kalento was playing Priest and Hunter. Because they top-loaded their ace match with Warrior, Shaman and Paladin, you've ended up having to put 2 of the less good classes together, which were Priest and Hunter. And I'd have loved to have seen Kalento, who got rank 1 legend with Priest recently, bring out the Priest and show us how it's done.
It looks like Kalento not even going to get to play today.
Exactly.
And I also, in the interview, I would ask them, hey, Kalento, what was your Priest deck? Was it the Light Warden Priest? But Ukraine have been very careful with the information they've given us.
Right, exactly. So, doubt we'll get anything from them. I don't blame them, right? They'll be a little bit more free maybe today, just because, but... yeah, I feel like this has just been over for a couple of turns. As soon as they managed to save that Feral Rage, it was a really good spot. Just keep our wits about us. There's a lot of damage in hand still.
Leroy is a lot of damage as well. Leroy plus the weapon would clear up the 4-8. Spellbreaker means it's not even necessary. Heroic Strike bound to come down this turn because there's no taunt up. So what's that? 6 damage puts Ukraine down to 13. Leroy plus weapon is still only 8 though.
Yeah. Let's just see though. 2-turn lethal, not quite there. Auctioneer,
oh, what
Wild Growth.
Well, the Wild Growth with the Auctioneer there. Innovate helps a lot too. That's a lot of card draw that Nick Chipper's about to get.
And he's able to play the things he draws. Just looking for anything Earthen Scales or Feral Rage.
Just Innovate now, right?
You Wild Growth first.
Okay. I don't think it matters, particularly which order you do it, but...
And even though he's not getting the card he needs, he shouldn't die next turn. And getting nearer to the card that he needs is the important part here. Second Innovate.
Come on, Earthen Scales. Come on, Feral Rage. Where are you? Last chance.
Didn't know you were Ukrainian?
Wow. Wow. Shockingly bad draws from the Auctioneer. Well, not really. You got 2 Innovate and 2 Wild Growth. But the fact that they didn't get specifically what they were looking for, no taunts, no heals.
Yeah, they need to work out, do they want to set up lethal for next turn, which they probably do, or do they want to armor up for 1? Do they think that point of armor helps them in any way? Answer is no. Be careful to put your opponent to 13, because
And-
then accidents could occur.
And the important thing here is that Heroic Strike plus Leroy isn't lethal, it's one off.
Right, yeah, they're just being very careful for the 13 here.
Kishtar's gone. Oh, he's back. All right. Firefly, a card that we've seen relatively often in Pirate Warrior recently, but not quite going to do the job here. He drops the well played. The game is over. Ukraine, specifically Dr. Hippie, Nyria, and Nick Chipper have taken a solid 3-0 win.
Yeah, and not much more to say about that. 3-0, Bish, Bash, and indeed Bosch pretty much through there. They got just the matchups they wanted, and that was just from picking good lineup. They just managed to do their research, I guess.
Yeah, they did their research, and as like a boss said to me earlier, he believes that the teams like Ukraine, they just play the best decks.
Yeah.
And it's quite possible that in their eyes, they didn't even do too much research. Maybe they just brought the best decks. They are the best players, at least in their eyes. Do the job.
Seems good to me. Like I say, Kalento having that Priest and Hunter would have been up next. Would have been interesting to see what he chose.
Let's take a look at how this series went one more time, but there's a lot of red on the left. There's a lot of green on the right. As Dr. Hippie and Nyria and Nick Chipper piloted their decks to victory.
Yeah, not much more we can say there. Playing the best decks, going through. No Yogg in game 1 for Peru. No extra damage for Kishtar there at the end. It got a bit closer than we thought. That's the power of the Pirates, that you do have to just not mentally switch off. There was a point there where an extra point of armor was just gained rather than messing around. That's maybe important.
All right, well, we are going to have a chat with one of the players from Ukraine. Hey, Nick Chipper, how you doing, man?
Hello guys, I'm fine, I'm great. We won 3-0.
Again, just another day for Team Ukraine. How are you expecting your next game in the group to go? I believe you're against Greece next. Is it just going to be another easy win for you guys?
I'm not sure it's like Hearthstone, but we will do what we can and we will win next game.
Of course.
3-0 on group. It will be awesome for us.
You put Priest with Hunter for later on. Was there anything special lined up for us there? Did we miss out on a treat?
On this matchup, we all games we counterpicked. So we expected Druid versus Hunter, and we pick Hunter. And it's some special strategy for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a little bit about that as well, because you guys put Warrior, Shaman, and I believe Paladin was your ace deck. Why would you push Paladin back right to the end there? Because from what we've seen, it's been the most popular class in the last few weeks.
We think like Paladin, it's most popular deck on the ladder. So most people try to counter Paladin decks. Some people put Hungry Crabs on the deck, and Paladin not good on this meta.
Okay.
Right, at this moment, we think. So
Today,
we just put it on ace matchup.
Thank you.
That's good to know. Thanks, Nick Chipper. You guys go and enjoy your win as you usually do, and we will see you again next week.
Sure, guys. Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you. A confident man, Nick Chipper, and he's the guy. I'm glad we got to interview him because Stottles made the point of saying a couple of times, it's only Nick Chipper. Nick Chipper would be captain, would be the best player on nearly every team in this tournament, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk to him.
I mean, I always say it, but
Broke my pen.
doesn't Raven have a little bit of a crush on Nick Chipper?
Nick Chipper, Hunter, expert, Hunter God,
A
Raven,
little bit of a man crush there.
can play Hunter. So yeah, that's kind of where it goes.
Yeah. And the thing you said about Paladin really surprised me because, again, I've been collecting all of the data from the last couple of weeks. And this doesn't include today, but Paladin has been played 24 times over last week and yesterday.
So that's out of last week's 24 teams, plus a few yesterday. Okay, so that's 2/3 of the time. That's
Right.
a lot of the time.
And meanwhile, Nick Chipper's telling us it's actually just the worst deck.
It's just a load of rubbish because people are playing crabs.
Based off of you said yesterday, Orange would disagree on that?
Yeah, he feels that. I think it was Orange that said that N'Zoth Paladin was the best in the game. But we've heard a lot of people say a lot of different things are the best in the game. We'll just talk through this 45 minutes of armor gain.
Through the yeah, exactly, the animations, the armor smith, just making it as painful as possible for Nandi. There we go. Let's go again.
That's a whole lot of armor.
Let's go and get a drink and come back, and then maybe this turn will be over. As what's that? 47 health total for Nick Chipper
That's
here.
just ridiculous.
But it only went up after that. He ended up with over 50 health this game. Way too much damage for the mage to ever be able to get through.
Yeah, and this game, I'm glad it's a long highlight because it's just showing how ridiculous all of that armor game was. And that's just the way to beat mage, is get a bunch of armor. Interesting. I should probably ask every single person we interview about that quest, because I'm fascinated by not just that matchup, but also the rogue matchup as well when you're playing the warrior, about keeping the quest and not. There's so many people on either side of the argument.
It is a very common, I think maybe it's Twitter poll time. I mean, that's different kind of
Twitter poll.
type of player that you're
Should I
looking for
jump or
mostly,
not?
but
Don't ask Twitter anything along those lines,
it's not,
ever.
not quite what I was referring to there, but let's move on from that. As finally it was the Jade Druid versus the Pirate Warrior. We talked right at the beginning of this game about how maybe Jade Druid isn't as unfavored as it used to be. Nick Chipper proving us right there. Primordial Drake doing a pretty great job of just locking down that game.
Yeah, he had a pretty terrific draw, to be fair, in that game. There was nothing the Pirates could have done about that one.
Let's take one last look at Group E. Ukraine sitting there with a 2-0, 6-2 game record.
Yeah.
They are all but guaranteed now to get through to the top 16 of this tournament.
Yeah, I would be amazed if they're not actually guaranteed now when we go and do the maths, because there's been a lot of other results in other groups that have just not gone towards the 2-0, 2-0, 2-0 route, so he should be okay now.
Peru on the other side, not looking so great. Guys, we are going to go to another short break, but when we get back, Canada versus Bulgaria, one of the most popular teams before this tournament, and one of the most popular teams, at least amongst the casters, during the tournament going head-to-head. We'll be right back in just a moment.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.